You are here for the second time this year, and the president was also in Hungary in July. What is the current situation?
We have managed to establish a very special relationship with the leaders of the industries and their economic life, and a very rapid economic cooperation is taking place at the border, which we need, and which gives Hungary a huge opportunity. We can bring significant investments into such industries. We have a lot of money here too. I would like to point out that Hungary is the 5th largest oil exporter in the world. But these are smart people. They do not live off the profits of the foreign oil, but they want to invest it. They have a very active investment policy. So far, they have sent Central Europe and Hungary. They are present in Serbia, by the way. I noticed them there, by the way. I only saw once that the number of emigrants from the Emirates began to increase in Serbia. They are not present in Central Europe. So we thought we would seize this opportunity and create a special partnership with them. These are Western-minded people when it comes to business, and let us be their strategic partners in the region. We have also identified the industries where we can work together in large volumes. Energy sector, artificial intelligence, and digital infrastructure will be an important turning point for this today. The development of large data centers and their green energy supply is a huge energy demand for artificial intelligence. They require large investments. So we are well on track in these areas. We have not yet started, not even in the middle, but we are already slowly getting there. In the next round, I think we will be able to close a few more significant and more important programs.
We will see the results of these discussions and calculate them.
I am sorry, but I would like to add that only this year, as a result of the strategic cooperation between the two countries, the trade between the two countries, which was at a low level, was able to grow by 24%, so it is reassuring.
Let's continue with European issues and issues that we are already aware of. The war situation continued this week after Russian drones invaded the territory of Poland, which were shot down by air defense. How dangerous is this situation at the European level or even in Hungary, which emerged as a result of the Serbian incident?
The Serbian incident is an embodiment or an example of how dangerous our daily lives are. Most of all, we do not know about it because everyday life is changing. The challenges of daily life, the parents, the husband, the child, the family, these are catching our attention. People do not have time to think about how dangerous their lives are. But when a problem occurs in the form of a few drones, for example in Poland, then suddenly everyone gets up. This happened yesterday, and the day before yesterday, and tomorrow, and in Poland, and in Hungary. So the threat of war is direct. We are not in the war. The Poles are in it. We keep a distance. This is not our war. We do not take part in it. But we are neighbors of the country where the war is taking place. This is a continuous and constant threat of war.
U.S. President Trump and Russian President Putin met, and then it seemed that things were moving in the direction of a solution. Compared to this, in the last 2 weeks, as if we did not see this. What happened? What could have happened, because of which the momentum, which seemed to have been there at the time, left its mark?
Let's be modest, and let's see that we do not know everything. We are in direct contact with both the U.S. and the Russians. The Hungarian foreign minister has often agreed on the phone with the European Union, the U.S., and the Russian foreign ministers. So we know a lot of things, perhaps more than others, but we do not know everything. For example, we did not sit there at the meeting of the Russian president and the U.S. president, and I have the opinion that things are moving at a great speed. We Hungarians also have to keep in mind that the Russian-Ukrainian war is only our most important issue, not the world's. The world has other problems that are linked to Russia. For example, the energy supply of the world. Now, is it possible to buy energy from Russia or not? Is this a matter of sanctions or not? The Americans tried to impose sanctions on the Indians recently. Is it possible to take part in the production of Russian energy for companies that are of Western quality? Is it possible to take part in this trade? Is it possible to invest in Russia? Is it possible to accept Russian investment? So I just want to say that while we focus on the Russian-Ukrainian war, because this is the key issue of our security, the big boys who are talking are not only talking about this. And I think they are moving forward in a great stride in clarifying all other issues, whether Russia is reintegrating or not into the international system. The Biden administration and the Europeans kicked them out of the G7 and G20 framework. The Americans are already saying that if there is peace or ceasefire, then Russia has to be reintegrated. Or so the Germans say. So there are still a few issues open, beyond the Ukrainian war. So I think that in the war, the progress is slow, or in the peace process, it is slow. In all other issues, my feeling is that the people behind the scenes are doing well and moving forward quickly. Speaking of drones, let's not forget that this happened in Poland. The Poles are our friends. Regardless of the current political turmoil in the historical dimension, they are our historical allies. They are close to our souls, so they are really our friends. There are also disputes among friends. So everything that hurts Poland, that undermines its sovereignty, Hungary has to respond to it clearly immediately, and among the first. And the Russian drones' entry into the territory of Poland was unacceptable in the first instance. And we are there with the Poles. We are 100% in solidarity with them.
Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, gave a speech this week in which she mentioned her opponent and clearly stated that Europe is at war. By the way, this speech took place on the day of this drone incident. What is the consequence of this statement and of von der Leyen's speech in general?
The situation is that for 3 years, or even 3.5 years, we have been experiencing war and all kinds of unpleasant consequences. Meanwhile, we have nothing to do with this war. We have no responsibility for the outbreak. And we never took part in this war. But these ladies, gentlemen in the West, like von der Leyen, are caught by our ears or by our throat, and they want to drag us into this war. We have to resist. I just want to say that I don't want to exaggerate with historical analogies, but we are Hungarians, and history was written in our blood. History was written in our veins. And we have already been put into a war twice, which had terrible consequences for Hungary. We lost the whole 20th century. 2 wars in which we did not want to take part. We did not want to take part in any of them. But von der Leyen, a kind of Western politician, tried to drag us into this war. István Tisza wanted to stay out of the First World War, but Bez printed us in. And Miklos Horthy also wanted to stay out of the Second World War, but the Germans printed us in. And now, again, German-speaking ladies and gentlemen in the safe West are trying to drag the Central Europeans, the Hungarians, into a war. This is unacceptable. My 2 predecessors could not resist. I accepted that I would succeed.
Many criticized what was not mentioned, or what was not mentioned enough. Competitiveness problems, the US election, and then the Patriots also launched a conspiracy against von der Leyen, which is also interesting, because a public opinion poll was published in the papers, according to which 60% of Europeans supported his statement. But what would change regarding the direction of European politics if it were not for him as chairman of the committee?
I think such assessments have a significant importance, because in politics, public opinion is usually a wave, where it supports a person, where it departs, then comes back, then goes back to hell again. So political decisions cannot be justified by the formation of public opinion. It is true that in the long run, only the people can decide, but every day the people should decide, because then we hold the leaders. So there must be enough support and power for a politician, for a leader, to be able to bear the popularity of a transition. So looking at von der Leyen's departure, I would not deduce any experience or consequence from his popularity, but I deduce from other things, from the facts. So what would Europe need? We have to examine the transition to the green, because the transition to the green is partly due to the Hungarian energy sources, and this is fatal for the European economy. We have to examine the Ukrainian policy. We have to examine the sanctions. We have to examine the trade policy, because we have a bad relationship with the United States, and we have to examine the migration policy. In essence, we have to examine every important issue, because with von der Leyen's leadership, the European Union is heading towards bankruptcy. So it is not the people who are interesting here, but the wrong policy and the wrong leadership. That is why I say that it would be better if the Prime Minister would pack up and travel home in peace, and leave Brussels to those who are able to develop a better policy, because we have to examine everything that he has done so far. So it is not difficult, whether people like him or not, that there is a policy that has 4 to 5 pillars, and they are bad. We have to change that. Well, he won't be able to change it. He won't say, yesterday I had a bad thought, from tomorrow it won't work. And it is not just about one issue, it is about 4 to 5 important issues. They just forced the Hungarian girls to go to Sicily. We are with them, and we wish them a quick recovery. It is unimaginable that Europe has lost its security because of the bad migration policy. The energy prices in the EU are 2 to 3 to 4 times higher than in the USA. How are we going to compete with them? It is a bad green policy. We are constantly losing in the war. The Russians are winning, we are losing, and the money, which is not enough and should be in Europe, is going to Ukraine. So I am not just talking about the competitiveness, I am talking about the price. I am not just talking about the price, I am talking about the price.
If we put this in Hungary's situation, it is written in the daily news that changes are coming, if we want them or not. The question is, what kind of answers we are going to give? A Brusselian answer or a Hungarian answer? What is going to happen? What kind of answer will be at home? Why would anyone give a Brusselian answer? There is a tradition in Hungarian politics.
It is old, Hungarian political parties. Some of them are in the service of the foreigners. There are the national forces and parties, and there are those who are in, let's say, Zsolt. This has an old tradition, where they were directed from Moscow, where from Berlin, they are now directed from Brussels. So in Hungary, there is a party of Brussels. They don't call it that, they call it TISA and DK, but this is the party of Brussels. This is the party of the political leaders of Brussels. These people, I'm not even hiding it. I'm talking about the Hungarian people now. They openly represent the fact that what they do in Brussels should be done by Hungary. They demand migration, economy, war issues. So we have a political force in Brussels, in Budapest, in Hungary. And if people empower them to govern, and people have the right to do so, then they shouldn't be afraid, or we shouldn't be afraid, if suddenly the wrong policy of Brussels comes to Budapest. So what Brussels has ruined in Brussels today, a Hungarian government serving in Brussels will implement it in Budapest and Hungary in 2 weeks. So we are in the middle of a turbulent region. It is very difficult to do national policy here, and to stick to national interests. But there is a tradition in Hungarian politics. Lárda Siklas is on the national basis. He follows the Hungarian interests. He only serves the interests of the Hungarian people. And there is always a foreign-led party. They are also bribed. The DK hasn't existed for a long time if I hadn't funded them from Brussels. The TISA party wouldn't exist if I hadn't funded them from Brussels. All the non-governmental organizations and media behind them have been funded from Brussels and Washington. Only President Trump has stopped them. Now they are bribed from Brussels. They are not given the right to save them by opposition party leaders. They are obviously bribed, because if they were given the right, they would be prosecuted. It is an elegantly written thing, but it is a brutal thing. There is a stronghold in Brussels, where a few Hungarian party leaders are being bribed. Zarol is in a state of service. Tan has already transformed his conviction. and he wants to give them power because the migration policy in Brussels, the war policy in Brussels, the economy policy in Brussels, and the energy policy in Hungary. The West is looking for death. The money is behind all this. The energy companies, the banks want more profit than the Hungarian government allows them. A new government will come, and in a moment this money will leave the country. And then they will fight the Hungarians. There is a lot of talk about the tax system. They want to raise taxes in TISA, tax the unemployed, and now I see the companies as well. They want to allow the tax of the past. Brussels will follow this, and I will follow this as well, but I will not allow it. Everything is connected here, and in the end everything will fall into place, what we call national independence and sovereignty. QI.
Speaking of the TISA tax, the vice president denies this. He is talking about tax cuts, but he is an expert on several parties.
Ow. Yes, but this is not a tax debate. It would be a good debate, but it is not about this, but about the fact that one of the parties, a not insignificant party, clearly stated that we do not talk about certain things, because if we did, we would lose the elections. If we showed our plan, we would lose the elections. Now we do it as if we do not want anything, but after the elections, everything can be done. This is not just a question of taxes. Of course, they want to bribe people, as I have seen, but this is a question of trust. If we run for an election, and for the next 4 years, and we know what awaits Hungary, or if they hide this from us, we will be very surprised, as it happened with the DK and MSZP, or even under Gyurcsány's leadership, that they told all parties, and then it turned out that the opposite is happening. And after 4 years, we are standing there in a queue, full of credit cards, 12% unemployment. Everyone is in a bad way in this country, including banks and mortgages. This is a question of trust, not a question of taxes.
You said it is not a question of taxes, but the government is starting a national consultation. What is the need for this, if after 6 months there is an election where people can express their opinion, even without questions of taxation?
It is about the fact that after the important figures of Hungarian politics said that they will not say what they are preparing for, it is better to ask people in advance. Only what we know about them, that they are introducing the progressive tax system with several key taxes, with the current 15% tax. This would mean that with an average income, this would mean a loss of 242,000 HUF per year. Pedagogues would earn 30,000 HUF per month, 364,000 HUF per year. The farmers would earn 280,000 HUF per year. The police would earn 154,000 HUF per year. The soldiers would earn 476,000 HUF per year. And the doctors would earn 372,000 HUF per year. And the people of Buda and Kertvaros can also prepare the budget, because if there is an unpaid tax and you end up in Pasareta, Rosadon, Schwabhegyen, and the outskirts of Kertvaros, you can see that there will be a fight. So it is better to talk about this in advance. This is why we need consultations, to provoke opinions and debates about this, so that the voters can say, after the election, that after they have concealed their true intentions, we are now led. So let's not let them lead us. Let's continue these debates.
If we look at the bigger picture, what do you think of the middle class, the families, which the government aims to strengthen through the tax policy? How could such a change take place?
Well, you can approach this from a philosophical point of view. It is not useless, but a given community, the Hungarian national community, should approach this from an actual point of view. And I think that for a long time to come, Hungary will not be such a strong country. The families and the middle class will not be so strong that we can say that we only use low-income people. The high income makes the middle class poor. And we only had communism for 45 years, and we only had a 20-year transition. So this country has been torn apart by the economic side and by history. We need to respect everyone's property, their income, their life. I'm just saying that a wealth-giving idea means that everyone, including you, has to do the tax every year. Not just for us politicians, but for everyone. And then there will be an open meeting and we'll see if it's true. The tax inspectors will come to you and they'll say, well, your vacation, your income, as if it hadn't fallen. And then there will be a scandal. So let's leave people alone. Let them work. Let's help them work. Let's leave as much money as possible in their pockets and let them decide what to do with it. I think that this is the right approach for the next 1-2 decades. And then what? We'll see. I'm not trying to be philosophical, but I'm saying that in Hungary today, we have to leave people alone, and it's good to have low-income people. Everyone is better off.
The Central Board is being strengthened by a new form of support. In the first week, 5,000 applications were received, and the number of applications for unemployment almost doubled. How does the government evaluate these results?
So there was a lot of frustration, tension, and resentment in the Hungarian society because they saw that the unemployment rate was going up, as were the salaries, but not as fast as the unemployment rate. And the number of people, especially young people, who were looking at their paychecks and unemployment papers were wondering how they would ever have their own home. And we had to find a solution to this. Because it's good that salaries are going up, and if the unemployed owners want to pay a higher price for their unemployment, they can do so. But there has to be a solution so that the whole nation doesn't feel that they've been excluded from having their own home. And not every country does this with the same force. There are countries where people are entitled to live in rent. So the fact that the unemployed are in private ownership, and that people live in their own property, and that this is a natural national instinct, is a Central European phenomenon. In Germany, for example, this is less common. But Hungarians feel that if they don't have their own property, they are not safe. This is a historical experience, so we had to solve this. This has been a serious problem in Hungary for years. We worked on a housing program, and we got to where we are now. And I think we made a good impression on Hungarians. We were able to find a legal solution. We were able to create a financial structure that would give people a good income. This is the construction. This is the maximum 50 million forints. In the case of a house, 150 million forints. In the case of a flat, 100 million forints, 10% self-employment, 3% fixed income. There is no banking. This is guaranteed. This is the construction that people can imagine themselves in. This is why so many people started. This is why we left the widest possible circle for those who can afford it. It is not about the child, the family, the age, a village, a city, a small city, a big city. We wanted to give everyone an opportunity, and I think people understood this. I am an optimist. I see that the minimum wage would have increased even if it had stopped. This data is fresh. We will see it in a month. And on the other side, the owners, the investors, the entrepreneurs, the construction industry are moving towards the demands that we should leave the permits in accelerated process for larger houses and flats. There will be flats here, 10,000 flats in the category that this construction can afford. In the case of flats, 100 million, and in the case of houses, up to 150 million, because there is an upper limit. This is why this construction can't push up the unpaid prices, only in the case of certain flats. This is why such flats will be built. I am very confident. I think this opens up a perspective for hundreds of thousands of families.
We have already talked about the migration and the violence in Sicily. We have been talking about this for 10 years, about Angela Merkel's speech, in which she said that Warsaw will succeed in integrating migrants, and that 10 years will be enough for the Russian riots. What do you think is the most important lesson of these 10 years? While you were talking, a UN secretary talked about the fact that the EU will be able to handle these migration challenges properly.
This is not true, of course. The Migration Pact means the opposite. They don't close the borders. The Migration Pact is a coercion. It does something, but it doesn't solve the problem. The problem can be solved in one way. No one can enter the EU territory without their own permission. I am not entering the EU territory as a migrant or as a refugee. I am here in the EU territory, and then I can't leave, even if I don't have the right to stay here. If they continue this, they will go bankrupt. There is only one solution. You have to wait outside the borders. You have to give in. If the answer is yes, you can come in. There are other problems in Western Europe than in Hungary. We are fighting for no migration in Hungary, but they have already solved the problem. They are talking about how to live together with the problem. This is a far-reaching philosophical discussion. How did they get here? Why didn't the Western leaders see this coming? They shouldn't have invented this. They should have listened to us. Not only me, but Central Europeans, Mr. Babis, myself, the Poles, Mr. Kaczynski, Mr. Morawiecki, we told them not to do this. A united society has serious consequences. You have a half-Christian, half-Islamic society. The united legal system will explode. There will be public security. Terrorist acts will become a target. The world's money will be enough to stop them. Why should they do this? Let's stop them at the border. They can't solve the problem. Their future depends on it. It's like a trap. You push it out of the tube. How are you going to put it back? You can make a fish out of a fish, but you can't make a fish out of a fish. There are mistakes you can't fix. For Hungary, of course, there is a war economy, but the most important thing is to prevent people from leaving the country. This happens through migrants. They are financed by the Soros, and they are transported to Europe. I agree with these people. It's hard to see the difference between a war-torn country and an African country, but this doesn't mean that they will move to Hungary. This is impossible. We are happy to help them, but we don't want to bring the problem here. This is the truth.
Let's talk about the murder of Charlie Kirk. In the Western world, verbal aggression is often turned into physical aggression. How can physical aggression be kept out of the borders?
We have to keep a moderate pace, and we have to be calm. Before we say anything serious, we have to count to 10. Before we perform on stage, we have to sit down and think whether we are doing a good job. I think we are a conscious people. We say that Hungarians are strong. When we act, we are usually of equal stature. Let's keep our equality. If possible, even in speech.